I was staying with my brother in a small cabin hidden deep in the forests of northern Montana. The place rested quietly between the tall mountains wrapped by endless pine trees and the cool scent of wild air. Me and my brother Johnny always loved being away from the city. We liked the sound of rivers more than traffic and the whisper of trees more than people. That trip was meant to be peaceful, a simple escape into nature. We spent the first day resting from the long drive. The cabin felt warm and silent. I lay near the fire while Johnny said he wanted to take a walk before dark. I barely lifted my head and told him to go ahead. He took no backpack and said nothing else as he stepped outside. The door shut, and I heard the sound of his boots fade down the path. I stretched out on the couch and drifted half asleep. Time slipped by until the sun vanished behind the peaks and the fire became the only glow in the cabin. That was when I realized Johnny was still gone. The woods outside were black and empty. A heavy silence hung in the air. My stomach twisted. I knew this was bear country. I grabbed my flashlight and a small pack and stepped out into the dark. The forest felt alive in the wrong way. Every rustle behind me made my skin crawl. I kept walking down the trail, feeling as if someone was there watching from the trees. Then I saw Johnny coming toward me through the shadows. His face looked pale and tense. He was not running, but his steps were fast and nervous. We met halfway and spoke over each other until we both turned around and hurried back to the cabin. Inside, he told me he had seen a man watching him from behind the trees. The man never moved, yet Johnny felt him following as he walked. He waited until dark to return, hoping the stranger would lose interest. He said maybe it was nothing, but I could see in his eyes it was not nothing at all. We made dinner and sat by the fire on the porch, pretending to talk casually, though both of us kept scanning the dark woods around us. The mountains fell silent, no wind, no birds, just a faint crackle of burning wood. Morning came slow and gray. We ate and went hiking up one of the peaks. The view was endless and cold. By the time we came down, we were drained of all energy. Johnny said he needed a shower and disappeared into the bedroom. I sat on the couch staring into the dying fire until something strange pulled at my thoughts. The sound of the water never started. I called his name. No answer. My chest tightened. I walked to the door of the bedroom and pushed it open just a little. Through the crack, I saw Johnny kneeling in the corner, his eyes wide with terror. He shook his head slowly, telling me to leave. Behind him stood another man. His hair was long and greasy, and his skin looked dead pale. His clothes were torn, and his eyes had the emptiness of something wild. My mind didn't think. My body just moved. I ran at him. The man lifted a gun, but I was already on him. We hit the floor hard. Johnny grabbed a weapon, and together we pinned the stranger down. His screams were not human. He clawed like an animal trying to bite. We tied him with belts and cords and ran for the car. The man's screams followed us through the trees as we sped down the dirt road. When the police arrived hours later, the cabin was empty. The ropes we used were torn and scattered on the floor. The gun was still in our car. They traced it to a missing man from 5 years earlier. The face did not match. Whoever attacked us must have taken that gun from someone who never escaped. If I had hesitated even a second longer, I do not think either of us would have. Years later, I went alone to my father's old cabin, far from any town. The place stood near an abandoned road lined with broken stores and houses left to rot. He used to visit there when I was a child, but after the town died, he stopped. After he passed away, I felt drawn to see it again. I wanted to repair it a little, maybe say goodbye. The walk was long and lonely. The woods swallowed all sound. When I reached the cabin, it was still standing through falling apart. Inside smelled of mold and dust. Someone had been living there years before, but left behind only garbage. I made a small space for my sleeping bag and tried to rest. That night I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt a heavy sense that someone was near me. The next morning I stepped outside at dawn to clear my head. From the top of a nearby hill, I could see the forgotten town far away. A single light glowed from one of the buildings before it suddenly went out. Later, while repairing the walls of the cabin, the same feeling came again. I felt watched. The shadows between the trees seemed to breathe. When darkness fell, I sat by the old stove listening to the fire until a new sound joined it, the crunch of footsteps outside. Then a voice called my father's name. My body froze. The man outside spoke slowly, asking if my father still lived there. He said he was an old friend from the town. Something in his voice felt wrong. I told him through the door that my father had passed away. The man went silent for a moment, then said it was a shame he could not see him one last time. His tone was cold. Then he asked me to open the door so he could warm up by the fire. I took a step back. He knocked again harder. His words became sharp. He said my father would not want me to let a man freeze outside. The knocking turned into pounding. I held my knife and waited as he shouted and hit the door again and again. Then suddenly it stopped. I heard him walking away through the leaves. I stayed awake until sunrise and fled through the woods to my car. I never went back. I still do not know who that man was or how he knew my father's name, but I am certain he was not a friend. A year after that, I visited my cousin's cabin near the Appalachian Mountains. It was more modern and comfortable than any I had seen before. My cousin let me stay for free while he was away. I was grateful until I realized I was not alone there. While unloading my car, I noticed someone standing at the edge of the tree line staring straight at me. I froze but tried to brush it off. Maybe it was a hiker. I went inside and locked the door. I texted my cousin and told him what I saw. When he replied later that night, he said nobody else lived anywhere near there. His land was 40 acres wide and fully fenced. My stomach turned. I checked outside again, but the night was thick and empty. I closed the curtains and tried to distract myself with a movie. Halfway through, I caught movement by the window. A shadow passed by. Then I heard running footsteps outside the walls. I called my cousin, who told me to contact the police. The officer arrived quickly, but the man was gone. Nothing could be done. I stayed locked inside, watching every window until I finally tried to sleep. At around 4 in the morning, I woke to a dull sound from the far end of the cabin. I switched on the light and saw a faint shadow moving in the hallway. The shape stepped closer until I saw him, the same man from the woods. My heart nearly stopped. I ran into the bedroom and locked the door. He followed slowly. His footsteps pressed against the wood floor right up to the other side of the door. Silence filled the space. Then I heard the handle turn gently. I grabbed my keys and phone, pushed open the window, and ran into the cold night. I reached my car and drove away until I saw the lights of the nearest town. Later, the police found the window lock broken and the bedroom door open. If I had waited even a minute longer, I would not have made it out. No one ever found that man. But I know he was there long before I arrived, waiting for someone to come. The night had fallen thick over the valley, and the old cabin stood alone beneath the whispering pines. The air felt colder than before, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The younger brother sat by the fading fire, staring into the embers that crackled softly. Every flicker of light painted shapes across the rough wooden walls. He kept hearing faint scratches from outside the window, but every time he turned, there was nothing. The older brother had gone to the nearby creek for water, yet it had been more than an hour since he left. The silence began to stretch longer than any sound could fill. The younger brother rose slowly and took the lantern in his shaking hand. The flame wavered as he stepped out into the dark. The trees towered over him like watching giants, their branches bending low, as if whispering his name. He followed the narrow path toward the creek, his boots sinking slightly in the wet soil. The wind carried a low hum, almost like breathing. When he reached the water, there was no sign of his brother, only ripples circling outward, as if something had just sunk beneath. He leaned closer, trying to see through the reflection. Then the lantern flickered and died. For a moment, there was only the sound of the water moving slowly. Then he heard footsteps behind him, heavy and uneven. He turned and saw a figure standing between the trees, its shape faintly glowing as if made of mist. The face was blurred, the eyes hollow shadows that pulled the light inward. He tried to call out his brother's name, but his voice broke halfway and only a whisper came out. The figure began to walk toward him, its steps leaving no sound, no mark on the ground. The air grew thick, the smell of damp wood and iron filling his lungs. He stumbled backward and fell into the creek, the cold water biting through his clothes. When he looked up, the figure was standing at the edge of the water staring down. Then it raised a hand pale and dripping and pointed toward the cabin. He ran. He ran without feeling the ground under his feet. Branches cut across his face, the night tearing around him. When he reached the door, he pushed it shut and pressed his back against it, breathing hard. The fire inside had gone out, yet the cabin was glowing faintly, as if lit from within the walls. Then from the other side of the door came a single knock, slow and deliberate. He stood frozen. The second knock came louder, the wood trembling under it. He grabbed the iron poker from beside the hearth and waited, but the third knock never came. Instead, there was a voice from behind him, low and calm, saying he should not have followed the light by the creek. He turned and saw his brother standing there, drenched eyes, empty face, pale as snow. Before he could speak, the brother smiled slowly and said he had finally seen what their father had always warned them about. Then his body began to fade into the same misty glow until nothing was left but the sound of dripping water on the floorboards. Outside, the forest had gone silent again. Only the wind remained moving softly through the trees, whispering the same words again and again, as if repeating a forgotten prayer.